Welcome to Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey. I'm Jess Graber, owner and managing partner, here with my head distiller, Jake Norris. We're here to make Colorado's first and only premium whiskey. We have created the first new kind of whiskey since Prohibition. We're going to take you inside and show you how we do it. Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey started off with an unfortunate incident where my neighbor George Stranahan's barn caught on fire. George is the founder of the Flying Dog Brewery, and I went up there to help put the fire out. After we were done, I asked if they were going to rebuild, and they said they were, and I said, well, perhaps you could allow me a room to conduct some distilling experiments in. And they said, sure, let's do that. That all started about 9 years ago. So even though we're new at this location, our creation has actually been in the works for quite a long time. So we're going to head out of here. We're going to head out to where the semi-trucks bring our grain in, to our mill where they crack the grain, to our mash tun where they add hot water to it to release the sugars, to our fermenting tanks where the yeast will eat the sugar in the water and create alcohol. Then they'll pipe it back over to us in the still house where we'll distill it in 2 different stills, age it in our barrel warehouse, and finally we're going to end up at the bottling line. We're going to see it actually go into the bottling. And that's the whole process from grain to bottle at Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey. We're at our neighbor's Flying Dog Brewery. Inside, Rocky Mountain barley is delivered to the grain silos. Then it's conveyed over here to our roller mill where we half husk crack it so that we can extract the sugars and start making our low-grade alcohol. This is the Flying Dog Brewery's beer cellar. We're looking at the mash tun. They take our cracked barley, put it in there, add hot water to it. That releases the sugar. Once the sugar is released, they're going to put it into one of the large fermentation tanks. They'll add yeast to it. The yeast will eat the sugar that's in the water, and that will create alcohol, about an 8% alcohol that we will then distill. So we're here in the Stranahan's Whiskey Still House where we're actually distilling. Our head distiller here, Jake Norris, is testing for alcohol content. Behind Jake is our wash still, which is our primary distillation. We have a combination Scotch still, which is a pot down here, and a column still, which is bourbon style up there. So what we're trying to do is turn our alcohol that was made next door at the Flying Dog Brewery at about 8%, we're trying to turn it into high-grade alcohol. So we'll cook the alcohol in here the first time, turn it into steam, cool it like a cloud, and collect it back into liquid in our wash tank over there. Once we've collected into our wash tank, we're going to turn it and put it into our spirit still over here and condense it into this tank back there. That's where we're going to put it in our new charred American white oak barrels. Our stills were made by Vendome Copper of Louisville, Kentucky, exclusively for us. Vendome is one of the oldest families creating brewing and distilling equipment in the United States. Okay, we're in the rack house now. Once our spirit is distilled for the second time, what we'll do is we'll add water to it and bring it back down to 110 proof, and then we'll put it in our new charred oak barrels and store it. And we only use our barrels once. That's by law. If we're going to be a straight Rocky Mountain whiskey or an American straight whiskey, we can only use our barrels once. So this warehouse is unique in the fact that it is heated and humidified, which is part of the reason that we get a very mature whiskey at what most people think is a very young age.
Okay, so what we're about to do now is actually test one of the casks to prepare it for bottling. I'm going to test it for color, of course the bouquet, and then of course now last but not least the flavor. So as you remember, the whiskey goes into the barrels clear and it gets all of its color and the majority of its flavor from the wood. This is past muster for bottling, so at this point I will cut it down to 94 proof using Eldorado Springs bottled water, and then I'll set it up to go into the actual bottling process where we bottle everything right here in this room. We actually hand sign every one of these labels, and then how I personally fill out my labels is I write what music I was listening to. So that's the way that the person at home that purchases that bottle can have a connection with me as the distiller.
Stranahan's is available throughout most of the state of Colorado. If your local liquor store doesn't have it, ask for it. We'll be able to supply that, but we're in virtually every location and we're in numerous bars and restaurants now. We're back in the still house with the finished product after bottling. Stranahan's is a totally new, unique whiskey. We start off Scotch style with barley. We cook it in a combination Scotch bourbon still, and then we age it bourbon style in new charred oak barrels. It's not a Scotch, it's not a bourbon, it's not a Canadian, but it is a straight Rocky Mountain whiskey. By law, we are a straight whiskey. So It's got a lot of the flavors that crossover drinkers will like from Scotch or bourbon, and it's going to be smooth in the finish because we thought that Colorado should have something unique and different than everyone else. So give it a try, find it at your local store.